welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you my Sabrina Carpenter journey. So I came up with this idea because I was thinking about the Sabrina Carpenter song that I assume that nobody knows what is. So I thought that I would give my whole journey. Okay, so let's start with pre-Eyes Wide Open. So 2013 to 2014. My first Sabrina Carpenter memory was from early 2014, which was the first Girl Meets World trailer, like the teaser trailer. My mom showed it to me on her iPad at the kitchen table, and I remember being like, oh, I like that girl. It's around the same time that they were promoting that, Disney Channel was also playing Can't Blame a Girl for Trying. I remember getting up every single time Can't Blame a Girl for Trying came on in my loft and dancing around. I also remember when White Flag was featured on Radio Disney. It was either White Flag or The Middle of Starting Over. I can't remember, but this was like EP era, so pre-Eyes Wide Open. We were driving back, I want to say from either the library or like the town hall. I want to say it was like town hall. I feel like it was whenever I used to do stuff with Scratch. And I had to pee so bad, and I waited till we got home from the program. I was singing White Flag or The Middle of Starting Over. I want to say it was White Flag, but I can't remember. It was on Radio Disney, and I was just singing it in the back seat, trying not to pee my pants. So that's a fun memory of Sabrina Carpenter that I had. I'm not sure what year this was, but I know it was before Eyes Wide Open. I had the Faith, Trust, and Pixie Dust CD. And if you haven't heard Smile by Sabrina Carpenter that was on that Faith, Trust, and Pixie Dust CD, you should 100% listen to it because holy cow, it is really, really good. And I get it stuck in my head all the time and I always want to listen to it, but I can't. It doesn't exist on Spotify, so like look it up. It's only on YouTube. Get that thing trending so it'll come back because it's nowhere to be found now. And I also remember like one of my first things, I was obsessed with Fall Apart. Just fall apart, which was one of her first officially released songs. And I remember being super confused with who the heck Mary Jane was, and it was from Spider-Man, and I just didn't know Spider-Man at all. Now for 2015, which was when Eyes Wide Open was released. When Eyes Wide Open was released, I remember listening to it, the album, on Spotify on my iPad. I remember showing it to my childhood best friend. I still have that CD that my mom got for me, and I don't even remember getting it. And Too Young was my favorite song. I remember watching her on the Radio Disney Music Awards and voting for the Crush song for Can't Blame a Girl for Trying, and then she won. Sabrina Carpenter! In 2015, in July, is also when I met Sabrina Carpenter. So I met Sabrina Carpenter in 2015 at the Ohio State Fair. This was before the Evolution Tour. She only played 9 songs. I actually looked up the set list. You can look it up. And my parents surprised me, which I have a picture of them surprising me as well. And they took me to the Ohio State Fair, and it was on like the calendar. And I was like, what are we doing at the Ohio State Fair? That's so random. Why are we going to the Ohio State Fair? And my mom was like, we're going to go see the bunnies. Which is a terrible lie. I'm really a really gullible person. When I met her, they like took all of our stuff, and then I have some like merch from like the Eyes Wide Open era, which is crazy. I have a necklace. I have a Sabrina Carpenter gold necklace. I went from Illinois to Ohio to meet her, and we got in like early to the fair. I met her, her mom, and her sister, and the photographer was really worried about me because I almost passed out. And that was my first like meet and greet experience. In between Eyes Wide Open and Evolution, in 2016, I went on a cruise, and one of my still good friends, she was obsessed with Taylor Swift, and she used to play The Story of Us in the elevators, and she kind of introduced me to Taylor Swift, would introduce me to the song Safe and Sound, which at this point I thought was a Sabrina Carpenter song. And I remember fighting with her for so many hours saying Sabrina Carpenter sang Safe and Sound because I was 12 and I should have known what a cover song was, but I clearly didn't. To this day, I don't like Safe and Sound because I like the Sabrina version. Also in 2016, Sabrina released Smoke and Fire, which she did a Facebook Live for. She did a Facebook Live, and I remember watching on my mom's phone, and I remember getting special permission, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can watch Sabrina Carpenter live. And I was like sending all these questions just like I do now. And I remember like scheduling the whole day around it, like, okay mom, I'm busy, I have to watch Sabrina Carpenter on Facebook on this exact date at this time. Then comes Adventures of Babysitting, which it still bothers me to this day when people are like, why would you should get tickets to Short and Sweet if you can sing her rap in Adventures of Babysitting. No, if you can sing Smile and Fall Apart, then you could get it. I was so sad, and I watched all of the DCOMs, so it was the 100th DCOM, Adventures in Babysitting, and I sat there for like 3 days, and I watched like all of those DCOMs that were like premiering. Pixel Perfect, oh my gosh, I don't know why that reminded me of it. Starstruck, and I recorded them like all on the DVR, and we had them for so many years, and I recorded like all of them, and then I deleted all the sports ones. Read It and Weep. It was the 100th DCOM, Adventures in Babysitting, and I loved Adventures in Babysitting. I love the song from it. Now we're on to Evolution. Evolution is the first Sabrina album where I had like full social media privileges, and I was absolutely obsessed by this point, like concerningly obsessed. Like I had her post notifications on. I was like, it was probably like a creepy level. I recreated the Evolution photo shoot in my room. Yeah, and so like I dressed in like black. I like was obsessed with telling people what the love meant, which is why you always see me capitalize love in Evolution, because Evolution, the first 4 letters are love, and that's spelled backwards, and she was super proud of that back in the day. I also made like tons of video stars at that time to like older Sabrina songs or to Evolution songs. I listened to her track by track on Radio Disney like the day before the album came out. So the first time I ever heard the full album was on Radio Disney on my computer in my mom's room in my house in Illinois. I remember I was like sitting, why was I sitting? I was like sitting on her chest, not my mom's chest, like her, like a wooden chest. So the lead single for Evolution is On Purpose, and On Purpose to this day is one of my favorite Sabrina Carpenter songs, and it has been since the day I heard it. And it was really controversial in my house because I couldn't listen to it at 11 o'clock when it came out, which 11 p.m. Central Time, because I've always lived in Central Time. I couldn't listen to it that night because I had to go to the library for an event the next day. I want to say it was like Harry Potter Day at the library, and I remember I had my huge headphones on. I probably still have the picture, eating pancakes, and I was listening to On Purpose for the very first time at my kitchen table, and that's like a super core memory. And then, so Thumbs, I think, was released before Evolution, but I remember when the music video came out, 2 things I remember super big, because the Thumbs music video was like really impactful to me. It was like one of the first music videos I ever got super into, and I thought she looked so cool, and like all the things were like super Girl Meets World because they were in the subway, and I thought it was so cool, like the shots that they did, like the one shot, like similar to We Are Never Getting Back Together by Taylor Swift, which is so cool. It's still super cool. I think that's such a cool video, and I remember her talking about it and whatever. But 2 main things, I remember having to convince my mother to let me watch it because I wasn't allowed on YouTube at that point. And Mom was like, isn't it just premiering on Facebook? No, Mom. So I convinced her, and that was like one of my first ever times on YouTube watching something, because I like cried at my mother. And then the other one is I had me and my childhood best friend at a sleepover one time. I made her recreate the Thumbs music video with like in our living room, in my living room, and yeah, it's this huge memory. Thumbs was also when I discovered what acoustic versions were. I was like, what is an acoustic version? So I would listen to it and be like, oh, now I know what an acoustic version is. Because that's I think why Sabrina Carpenter, a lot of the time I talk about her, because I feel like she was like my first introduction to real music, you know? 2017 was when things went south. So that's when Girl Meets World ended, which I was devastated, and I cried so hard for many hours. I have pictures of me in probably one of those fake Snapchat filters. I don't know if you were allowed to have Snapchat, but if you weren't allowed to have Snapchat, you were on MSQ already, obviously. So in 2017 was when things turned to hell. Sabrina had her very first explicit song. Ooh, scandalous. In 2017, I was 13 or 14, so I was still under my mother's control a lot. And so with Hands, I couldn't listen to it. And that's kind of when I had to back off. My mother kind of forced me out of my Sabrina Carpenter phase. So then we have the interlude. And it's really crazy. Before I head back to how I circled back to Sabrina Carpenter all those years later, I listened to the Singular X like kind of as they came out. Like I ended up kind of seeing stuff. I kind of got really detached from Sabrina Carpenter and got really obsessed with Taylor Swift. So I didn't see that much. But I saw the Singular Acts and I listened to them, and I never really liked them. And still to this day, I don't love them. I ended up liking like a couple of the songs. Like I know I used Looking at Me for an edit, and then I use it as a like presentation for my mom for editing. I don't remember what that was for. It was like a compare and contrast. I was showing her how smoother edits look, and I was using Looking at Me, and I feel like it was a Taylor Swift VMA You Need to Calm Down performance edit by Wicked Taylor. So then 2020. So 3 years later, after I'd basically forgotten about Sabrina, not forgotten, she was never forgotten because she was such a huge part of my life, but it was more of 3 years later after I basically forgotten about Sabrina Carpenter, gone but never forgotten. Sabrina Carpenter drifted back to me because of Joshua Bassett. So I became obsessed with Joshua Bassett in December of 2019. Exactly on his birthday, I started watching his edits so I watched his 2019 birthday edits on his birthday, and I was like, wow, it's his birthday. I became a fan of him on his birthday. She only came back to me because of Joshua Bassett, because she was dating Joshua Bassett, or she was supposedly dating Joshua Bassett. And I remember thinking it's crazy that it was Sabrina Carpenter. Like, out of all the people in the whole world, why was it the girl that I used to be obsessed with? Like, my current obsession is now dating my oldest obsession, my original obsession, the original person that I like. And that's how she kind of got back into my orbit. And then I ended up listening to Skin because I was very much invested in the drama of it all, like we all were back in 2020. And I fell right back. I was like, okay, I can vibe with this. In September of 2021, I really fell in love with Skinny Dipping.
And skinny dipping, water under the bridge.
I was obsessed with it, and I listened originally because people were saying it sounded like Taylor Swift, and I know that Sabrina comes from that Taylor Swift background that I love. And so when Emails I Can't Send Standard Edition came out, I was on the maiden voyage of the Disney Wish, so I couldn't listen to it right away, and I was like, oh, that's too bad, I can't listen, I don't have Wi-Fi. The day after it came out, so I think it must have been a Friday, we were in Nassau, and my father, my lovely father, had to be disembarked off the maiden voyage of the Disney Wish, and he was in the ER. He's fine. But I remember the first thing I did, we sat down in the ER, and my mom was like, okay, you're gonna buy service in Nassau. And I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna listen to Emails I Can't Send. And that was the first thing I did in the hospital waiting room. I ended up going to the Emails I Can't Send tour in Tulsa. I bought the tickets in the middle of the ocean. I was on a Royal Caribbean cruise. Like, the second leg, which had the deluxe songs on it, so I got Feather and, like, Things I Wish You Said and Opposite. And I bought those the same day I bought the Joshua Bassett tickets to the Complicated tour for Chicago, which is crazy. That's crazy. And I had them, like, in the same month. So I did Sabrina, Josh, Taylor, all same month. Full circle, right? It was at an old church, and it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. But like I said, I had the deluxe song, so I missed Skinny Dipping, Can't Blame a Girl for Trying. But I did get to hear Vicious, Feather, Nonsense, Things I Wish You Said to Me. I hate Honeymoon Fades, by the way. Like, that song's the epitome of my existence. Then when Sabrina Carpenter, I was fully in it now. I was like, oh, she's top 5 favorite singers always. When Sabrina Carpenter was announced for the Taylor Swift tour, for Eras tour, I think I combusted internally a little bit because that was crazy. For Latin America, I literally texted my mom while I was at work, and I was like, is there any way that we can go to Latin America? And my father was like, no, Kaylee, you cannot go there. And I almost cried because, like, that is one of genuinely, like, the craziest things to me, that she was opening for the Taylor Swift. My two favorite, my original favorites. Now on to Short and Sweet, Man's Best Friend, and The Life of a Showgirl. When Espresso came out and it gained so much traction, I kind of felt deja vu because I really also like Olivia Rodrigo. And when Driver's License came out, that was a very similar thing to Espresso. It just blew up. And it's so hard to fathom when an artist that you've loved for like 10 years skyrockets. When Please 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 came out, I was on the ocean on a cruise again. That seems to be a huge theme for me. And I didn't love Short and Sweet first listen. I love it now. And I listened right when it came out with my good friend who likes Taylor Swift. And I listened to it. It was like the month after I saw Joshua Bassett on the Golden Years tour, so I was very much still in that headspace. And maybe that's why I didn't love it. But I love Juno. Juno is one of my favorite songs. It is definitely my favorite newer Sabrina song. And then I tried to get tickets for Short and Sweet tour. I actually tried to get them for Salt Lake City because I went with my good friend who lives in Utah. Or I was going to go with my good friend who lives in Utah. But after Emails I Can't Send was so cheap, and she missed out, man. She hasn't even seen her. And I've seen her twice. I was like, I'm not going for $300 for nosebleeds. Like, that's crazy to me for the little Sabrina Carpenter that I saw play 9 songs at a state fair. Like, no. But I've had lots of fun guessing along, watching the Juno positions, you know, all the clips, editing the clips. You guys have seen my edits. Then Man's Best Friend came out, and I had to wait a couple days, but honestly, Man's Best Friend is a no-skip album. I actually got all my friends from Discord to listen to it. And I got my best friend obsessed with it, so yeah. And then Life of a Showgirl. So when The Life of a Showgirl was announced and she was featured on it, I think I combusted. I got a notification before it got announced, and I remember, so I was sitting on my chair in my mom's room, and we were watching the live stream of the podcast, Taylor's podcast, what's it called? The Kelsey Brothers podcast, whatever it's called. New Heights. We were watching the New Heights live stream, and I got a notification from Swift Alert and Sabrina Alert at the same time. Sabrina Carpenter is featured on Taylor Swift's new album, The Life of a Showgirl. And I think I combusted. Like, I don't think I made it. I was just so trying to focus on that, but I couldn't because I was so focused on her being on that song. And that song is actually such a good song, and I'm so grateful that it is a good song because that is a lifelong collaboration that I've been waiting for forever. It's like Olivia, man. I think if Olivia sang with Sabrina, or if Olivia ever had got the chance to sing with Taylor Swift, I think I would combust just like that. That is like the only logical collab that I could wish for at this point in time. And that's kind of where we ended up. We're kind of here. I realized the other day when one of my friends at school didn't know that I liked Taylor Swift but knew that I liked Sabrina Carpenter, that Sabrina Carpenter had a much bigger impact on my life than I realized. So I made this video to kind of explain that. And so this is my Sabrina Carpenter journey. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!